Good morning. It's so great to be with you on this Sunday morning where the sun is out and we are having a beautiful Sunday. So welcome to our services. I'm the Reverend Julianne Lepp, a minister of this Unitarian Universalist congregation. Welcome to UUC's virtual service, and we will be doing virtual services through May 2021. If you or someone you know is interested in learning more about UUC, we had a membership class yesterday, and also people can contact me if they'd like to learn more about our congregation, how to get involved. You'll hear this morning about our harvest auction, which is in progress. Our silent auction has been super fun to participate in. Our opening words are from Jeff May. Come, gather, not into a common space, sharing a physical closeness we long for, precluded by wise choice, but come gather into this common time and this common virtual space. We need to gather. We yearn for connection. We hunger for the familiar faces of friends, the sound of shared voices proclaiming who we are, where we are going, that which resonates with our hopes, our dreams, and our values. Come, gather. We are here in this space made of all spaces, and we share our becoming in this moment. Come, let us worship together.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Eau Claire. I'm Rob Kupta.
And I'm Greg Moore.
We are eagerly anticipating the annual harvest auction this coming Saturday, and we are the Greg Moore Enchanters.
There are some important but necessary changes to the auction, so listen carefully. This year, the auction is online, and you get to the auction webpage through the church website or click on the links in any recent newsletter. It is recommended that you take a look at the auction catalog, which is found on the auction page, which is on the link that we mentioned earlier. Access to the silent auction and the buy it now items has been open since 11 a.m. yesterday, and you may be wondering what you have missed. But do not panic. If you were asleep at the wheel or were too engrossed in YouTube videos yesterday, the silent auction and buy it now will remain open until 1 p.m. on Sunday the 15th. We, the Greg Moore Enchanters, will pause for you to breathe a sigh of relief and mentally resolve to shake off that brief chill of disappointment and resolve to carry on.
The opportunity to sign up for events is at 5:30 the night of the live auction. These sign-ups are filled when names fill all possible slots. There is no digital equivalent to putting jackets on seats, leaning chairs into the table to reserve spaces, or securing a volunteer to sit at the table and announce to all that these seats are saved. In order to participate in the live auction, you are required to purchase a $5 ticket for $5. That's a per household price, and you will receive a link to the live auction via Zoom. You can check in at 6:30 and hobnob with other early arrivals, see who else is there, and check out what others are having for appetizers. The live auction begins at 7. There are all kinds of baskets and knit woolen things, aprons and dog sitting, desserts on demand, mosaic creations, a tote bag or two, teas and a teepee and a sheep throw to fling, wooden quilt squares, artsy frame prints, a week on Kauai. These are a few things your bid could win. For those who purchase a ticket, you can also add on desserts and or party items. These must be ordered ahead of time by 5 p.m. on Monday the 9th. That's tomorrow. Desserts and party items will be delivered on Friday and Saturday before the auction. Your purchases can be picked up at the church by appointment on Sunday, starting at 4 o'clock, and on Monday, November 16th, also by appointment. You can take part in the annual auction, which is to become not only the social event of the year, but the socially distanced event of the year.
Thank you
And good night.
That was awesome, and I'm so glad we didn't have to miss it this year. I'm David Hirsch. I'm the president of the congregation this year. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation. We are a religious community who commit ourselves to diversity. We hope to nourish human differences, those of gender, race, age, ability, sexual orientation, political views, culture, class, and religious belief. Welcome to all who treasure freedom of conscience in the search for truth. We promise to do our best to provide you a spiritual home. We extend a special welcome to our visitors today. We hope that you will follow our UUC Facebook page and stay tuned for other events such as Wonderful Wednesdays and Sunday morning meditation. There are religious exploration classes for adults and small groups for support and interests like book club. Also, families can follow our UUC Religious Exploration Facebook page. There are religious exploration classes for 4K through 9th grade and youth group every Wednesday online from middle school and high school. We are so glad you joined us today.
Hi, I'm Debbie Campbell, and I'll be lighting our chalice today. We invite you to light your candles or chalice at home with us. In a time of uncertainty, when everything around us is changing constantly, each day new developments, rising numbers, changing guidelines, when the world we live in suddenly seems upside down and topsy-turvy, we light our chalice to remind ourselves of our grounding in faith. We remember that the flaming chalice came into being as a beacon of hope during World War II, a secret symbol that offered help. In the midst of it all, we wrap ourselves in the warm light of a familiar flame, a reminder of the strength that emerges when we come together as a community. Alice Anachek Naisman. Our first reading today comes from John A. Burens and Rebecca Parker, Hope Rises. Hope rises. It rises from the heart of life here and now, beating with joy and sorrow. Hope longs. It longs for good to be affirmed, for justice and love to prevail, for suffering to be alleviated, and for life to flourish in peace. Hope remembers. It remembers the dreams of those who have gone before and reaches for connection with them across the boundary of death. Hope acts. It acts to bless, to protest, and to repair.
Now is the time in our service where we share our joys and concerns. You may share your joys and concerns in the chat, and I will share them aloud in this circle and community of care. We'll have a moment of silence while you share those. And just a reminder that we all have partisan feelings as individuals, but just a reminder that our congregation does operate as a welcoming, nonpartisan space, and we want to be welcoming and inclusive. Ralph Edwards shares a joy that the weather is so great. I will light a second candle for that, Ralph. Thank you for this weather. I think in the midst of all this strife, it's been really nice to have beautiful weather. Danny Higley says that some of her extended family has tested positive for COVID-19. Her thoughts are to them and with them for a swift recovery. Nate Otto shares, I honor the life of Donna Eckright. I hope I'm saying that right, Eakright, the mother of one of my closest friends. Donna always had a place for me at her family's dinner table. She died of COVID on Monday. We light a candle of concern for her and her family. My granddaughter was married in New Orleans yesterday and will view it today. That's from Marcia Jacobs. Lacey Hayward, I am grateful and relieved after the election results. Reverend Virginia Wolf, our son's kids are all recovered, but David is still struggling with COVID. We will light a candle of concern for him. And Jennifer shares, happy birthday to my girlfriend, Nikki. Happy birthday, Nikki. And Rob Brian Nelson has a joy for our daughter, Penelope, who turns 3 on Tuesday. That's unimaginable. She is so cute. That's wonderful. All right, Frank, I am grateful for our future calm and thoughtful leadership. From Francis and Aaron, in honor of my aunt Debbie, who passed a few days ago. The candle of concern for your family. Don Pierce shares on Facebook, loving the beautiful hiking trails that Wisconsin offers. Yes, I will second that. That's been, I think, a joy for a lot of people during the pandemic, is to get outside and to be in nature. I'm going to light a candle for our family who is going to get outside during the cold weather because we just got more long john. So yay. So want to honor all the joys and concerns shared in this space. And, we continue to reach out to one another. I will share this final candle from Ruth Lovejoy to my Uncle Tom in Washington State, who celebrated his 96th birthday in Centralia, Washington with a drive-by. That's wonderful. And if you want to join me with the words that we share, love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Our story for all ages comes from Walking with the Wind, a memoir of the movement by John Lewis. About 15 of us children were outside my Aunt Seneva's house, playing in her dirt yard. The sky began clouding over, the wind started picking up, lightning flashed far off in the distance, and suddenly I wasn't thinking about playing anymore. I was terrified. Aunt Seneva was the only adult around, and the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger. She herded us all inside. Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller with so many children squeezed inside, small and surprisingly quiet. All of the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. We were scared. Even Aunt Seneva was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. The wood plank flooring beneath us began to bend, and then a corner of a room started lifting up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. The storm was actually pulling the house towards the sky, with us inside of it. That was when Aunt Seneva told us to clasp hands. Line up and hold hands, she said, and we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift. And so it went back and forth, 15 children, walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. More than a half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over those many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed, they came together, and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving towards the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle and the house would still stand. But we knew another storm would come and we would have to do it all over again. And we did. And we still do, all of us, you and I, children holding hands, walking with the wind.
This morning, we're going to talk about the spirit of our democracy. And many of my UU minister colleagues, we had different sermons in our pockets, depending on how things were going today. And all of this uncertainty has been hard. It's been hard on all of us. And, it's a joyful moment to know a result. And, John Lewis said that voting is the best nonviolent tool that we have. And so many people, a record number of people voted and came out to see that their votes were counted. And our reading this morning is from John Lewis's memoir, Walk in the Wind. And, he was such an inspiration to so many of us. I want to live in a nation where every vote counts. I want a nation that empowers voters instead of disenfranchising them at every turn with gerrymandered maps, with hoops that you have to go through. I want people to, have access to voting like we have access to so many things. It's part of our life, part of our democracy. And for democracy to work, everybody has to participate. And I think this year, more than any other year, that became so apparent. And I was so proud of the efforts of UU the Vote, from Chippewa Valley votes in our own Chippewa Valley that involved members of our congregation like Laura Getz and Karen Voss, and so many people who got out the vote with their parties and with other ways of doing it. I wrote postcards through some organization, and some people did phone banking. I did a little bit of phone banking, which was horribly uncomfortable, but we all did what we felt that we needed to do to help people feel like they had hope and a part in the process. And I think that's really it, right? A democracy means that we can be part of the process, and that's what we want. The Unitarian Universalist fifth principle promotes the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. And nothing makes me prouder to be a UU than how much we value that process. If you've been to our annual meetings, we have voting and debate and everything is voted upon. We had a new member class yesterday and we were talking about the different principles. And, when I was called to this congregation 10 years ago, I sat in the acoustic cafe and waited to find out how the congregation voted. I left so that there could be a pressured vote. And and came back. Luckily, it worked out, and we were excited. But the congregation could have said, "Nope, we don't want this minister. We want a different minister," and that is power. And it's important. It is so important that we vote and have the ability to have our voice heard. The Reverend Parisi Parsa wrote, "In our religious lives, the democratic process requires trust in the development of each individual conscience, a belief that such development is possible for each of us, as well as a commitment to cultivate our own conscience. We could call it a commitment to the value of each person." In the words of Theodore Parker, democracy means not "I am as good as you are," but "you are as good as I am. My connection with the sacred is only as precious as my willingness to acknowledge the same connection in others." And that's it, right? We may not agree with each other. In this congregation, we have our own thoughts, which is good, right? We want that. We want debate. We want participation, and at the same time, it's that respect. And I think that is what we're hungry for in this nation, is to try and call back a sense of respect, and where we can have conversations and where we can get things done instead of sitting in our silos and throwing rocks. And there can be reasons to throw rocks and to feel upset and to feel disenfranchised. But maybe, just maybe, we can work to heal the heart of our democracy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Parker Palmer's book about that. If you're interested in it, it's a really powerful book. When I was a little girl, I grew up I was born in 1974 and kind of grew up in the 80s primarily. And I got in trouble for speaking my mind a lot. I'm really grateful that my mother really encouraged me, and my dad encouraged me to speak my voice. But there were some in my family who really thought that just wasn't good manners. We'd be sitting at Thanksgiving meal and I'd say, "How about this person?" And of course, it was an African American politician, and my grandma would go, that kind of, and and for me as a young person, I'm like, "Ooh, that's powerful. I'm going to do more of that." And I'd poke, and you learn the power of your voice a lot of times at Thanksgiving meals. And sometimes you learn too that it's really hard to have political discussions and religious discussions with family, right? But being able to speak up and then respectfully also listen and also disagree, call people out. It's okay to call people out, but that doesn't mean you have to call them out as they are a person. There are people I fundamentally disagree with, and that leads me to feelings of dislike, and it leads me to feelings of disgust, because I think, how could somebody think this way? But at the same time, I breathe the same air as that person. That person is a part of our country. And so I want to figure out, in my mind, how do I make them a part of the conversation, even, and how can they make me a part of the conversation, right? Because a lot of times that's the problem too, is that they might not be listening. So as a girl, speaking out was discouraged, and we've seen that in our nation. There are a lot of unkind words ascribed to women who are angry. Can't be an angry, and especially if you're an angry, I'm putting this in big quotes, Black woman. They have, somehow holding politicians to a different standard, holding women to a different standard. Hillary Clinton was called the B word, and then candidate Trump famously called her a nasty woman. And some people are like, woo, I'm a nasty woman. Woo. We want so much to have our voices matter. And that's why we, in UU congregations, shout it from the mountaintops. Black lives matter, inherent worth and dignity. Love your neighbor. This isn't this isn't brain science, it's decency. And it's so interesting. In 2016, when Elizabeth Warren criticized Jeff Sessions, a nominee for the attorney general, and then was silenced by then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. She was silenced and interrupted while reading a letter from Martin Luther King's widow, Coretta Scott King, that was critical of Jeff Sessions. Even though in that space men have created, criticism of other senators, she was silenced. And what Mitch McConnell said in that was that Senator Warren was giving a lengthy speech. She had appeared to violate the rules. She was warned. She was given an explanation. Nevertheless, she persisted, right? So democracy calls us, regardless of party, and I'm not wanting to make this in any way a partisan talk. I think that we all should be at the table, speaking up, working to exercise our rights to vote, to persist and to keep up and keep on trying. And Terry Tempest Williams said, the human heart is the first home of democracy. It's where we embrace our questions. Can we be equitable? Can we be generous? Can we listen with our whole beings? And not just with our minds, but offer our attention rather than our opinions. That's hard, Can we give people our attention instead of our opinions? And do we have enough resolve in our hearts to act courageously without giving up, trusting our fellow citizens to join with us in the pursuit of democracy? And that's really hard too. You think about, groups that spew false information and you think, how can somebody believe that? And that's where, we promote education, we promote free press, and that's the beauty of honoring other people's voices, is to try and get in there and make some change. Parker Palmer had a book called Healing the Heart of Democracy, and he talks about 5 habits that do that. The heart is where we integrate what we know in our minds with what we know in our bones, he says. The place where our knowledge can become more fully human. That we're in this together and holding tension. Our lives are contradictions. If we fail to hold them creatively, then we don't hold these tensions in our hearts. We're complex beings. Pollsters found that out this year. They thought that people were doing certain things, but people are complex, and trying to put them in a box does not work. And the genius of the human heart, Parker Palmer says, is the capacity to use these tensions to generate energy and insight. And, the Big Bang Theory, boom, new life was created, right? And that happens sometimes with conflict. It is uncomfortable to sit in conflict. I'm definitely someone who struggles with that, and to let the tension of that create dialogue, and let the tension of that, you believe this, I believe that, what comes of that? What can happen in that creative interchange, especially if we can find respectful words rather than calling people names. And we can say, well, I disagree with that fundamentally because, instead of name calling. So we also, one of the big habits is community. Is without a community, it's impossible to achieve a voice. It takes a village to raise a Rosa Parks, And it took a village to translate Rosa Parks' acts of personal integrity into social change. In this week of following the election, I know many of us lost sleep. I'm often someone who struggles with sleep, and it was double time because I wanted so much to know what was going to happen and to feel in control, which, during the pandemic and during this election, I have definitely felt out of control. And just the relief of knowing yesterday that we had a peaceful, relatively, election made me have some renewed hope. And I heard that from others. But we still are a divided nation. In the midst of all this, we have so much work to do. Not that we can't celebrate what has happened, but trying to find those moments of connection. And it's not that sometimes when you try and meet someone, you keep following them this way. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that we should lose our ground. I think it's more powerful to say, hey, this is a basic human right. LGBTQ rights, Black Lives Matter, the planet, science is real, pandemic's real, wear a mask, do it now. All these things that for some of us are very basic. And then somebody might say to you, well, this is my feeling on that, and say, really? Tell me more about that. If you can. And sometimes it just makes your head explode. And you need to take a breath and get off of social media and not respond. But sometimes you might say, have you considered using Snopes or fact checking? Sometimes even on either side of the aisle, I'll see people post things that are incorrect because they've either been promoted by trolls in a different country or whatever reason. There's these things going on, and you can fact check articles on Snopes.com and other places. So there's many ways for us to take a breath and to participate with one another and to be kind to ourselves and hopefully find kindness for those we disagree with. John Robert Lewis was born near Troy, Alabama in 1940. He was the third of 10 children, and his parents were sharecroppers in rural Pike County, Alabama. As a boy, he wanted to be a preacher, and when he was, I loved reading about this. When he was 5, he would preach to his family's chickens on the farm. I can just imagine him trying to put his chickens in a row and be like, "Okay, chickens." And he had very little interaction with white people as a young person, and his county was majority Black, and a large percentage of his family was sharecroppers. By the time he was 6, he had only seen 2 white people in his life. And as he grew older, taking trips into Troy with his family, he had the experience of racism and segregation at the public library. That makes me so mad when I read that. Not, obviously it was everywhere, but that's where he experienced segregation and racism that he remembers. And he did so much for a civil rights. In 1957, he left Alabama. He went to theological seminary, and there he learned about nonviolent protest. And he helped to organize sit-ins at segregated lunch counters and was arrested, which upset his mother, but he kept on doing it. You can imagine those conversations. I know, Mom, I know, but, and it's these conversations that we have with our family sometimes. And he went on to participate in the Freedom Rides of 1961. He was one of the 13 original Freedom Riders, and this was a group of 7 Black people and 6 white people that planned to ride on interstate buses from Washington, D.C. to New Orleans to challenge the policies of southern states along that route, who had imposed segregated seating on buses. and that violated federal policy on interstate transportation. So this was a legitimate, and of course it's always legitimate, but the Freedom Riders, they were challenging this federal people doing it wrong. That's what I'm trying to say. So in the South, Lewis and other nonviolent freedom riders were beaten by angry mobs and arrested. At age 21, Lewis was the first of the freedom riders to be assaulted while in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And when he tried to enter a whites-only waiting room, 2 white men attacked him. And 2 weeks later, he joined a freedom ride bound for Jackson, Mississippi. Near the end of his life, Lewis said, "We were determined not to let any act of violence keep us from our goal. We knew our lives could be threatened, but we made our minds not to turn back." And we think of the people who have put their lives on the line, all the way back to suffragettes and people who worked to get the vote to be legal and free for as many people in this country as possible. Those who are continuing to fight for people to have the right to vote and to have free and fair maps, and who speak up for LGBTQ rights of marriage and humanity and civil rights. And there's so many people who, despite their fear, go out there, and I just think it takes so much support in their lives to have that, and those who do it without support, they must dig from somewhere deep within themselves. But I want to be in a country where people can do that, where they can speak their voice and be heard, where they can protest peacefully and not be assaulted by police for exercising those rights, where young Black men can jog in a neighborhood and not get harassed, where young women of color will not be followed around a grocery store or followed around a shopping experience because of racism and fear. And there's so many things that many of us want in this nation, and to heal the heart, the spirit of our democracy, to heal the heart is an ongoing process. We've heard that racism is never truly extinguished. The isms are always there, but that doesn't mean that we don't stop trying, and doing that with love, I know, accomplishes so much more than doing it by calling names. And sometimes our anger makes it hard not to, right? And I'm not saying that people shouldn't be angry, and I have no right to tell anyone that, especially after all that has occurred. But I'm saying in a democracy, it's amazing when we can come together, and it's amazing when we can have conversations. I was thinking, someone had brought up the idea to me that the UU should host meal, obviously not during COVID, this was a couple of years ago, that we should host meals and have people of different faiths and different beliefs talk to one another at a table and have kind of a covenant of how we would be together. And I think that's powerful. When I had lived over on East Side Hill, I had a neighbor who had different political beliefs than I, and we built a bond over a pollinator garden. And I think it's interesting when you can build relationships across religion, across the divides that we have in our nation. So when you think of the things that you hope for, and we think of the little children in our congregation and the world that they are coming up into, we want to build the world that we dream about, and that starts here in our congregation. We try really hard to use language that's inclusive, and to remember when we don't. Like sometimes I've screwed up pronouns, and I've called somebody who was an older parent a grandmother. That was a huge faux pas on my part. I was like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And I mean, there's so many ways in which we make mistakes, but we keep calling each other back. And, when we say love is the spirit of this church, what if we said love is the spirit of Wisconsin? Love is the spirit of our nation. Love is the spirit of our planet. Yeah. And trying to help other people know that too. I mean, because we can't do it all by ourselves. And that's the hard part is like, I know you would think, oh, if we just got all the people that agreed with us together, we would just change the world. Well, that's not the whole planet. We'd have to make our own planet, and that doesn't always work. So anyway, I'm grateful today. I'm grateful that I'm in a congregation where we can talk about these things, where we practice the vote, where we honor the inherent worth and dignity. When I was in seminary, so many people would say, man, I can't preach that at my congregation. And this morning I said, yay! We can have integrity in our beliefs, and we can have integrity in our voice and in our love. And so my closing thought is building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our vision, may we build such sweet harmony. May we build such sweet harmony. So all those voices, and I'm sorry if it didn't come across as well on Zoom, and music not always great with live, but we build bridges between our divisions, and what can we make together? Thank you so much, and amen. Now is the time in our service where we move to our giving. And as we do each month, we have a 50-50 share the plate. Our 50-50 share the plate this month is the Literacy Chippewa Valley. And you might have noticed in our video introduction to that last week, there was a little clip that showed Karen Peters really quickly. And I was so excited to see one of our members participating in that, and I know other folks in the Chippewa Valley have. With gratitude for the abundance in our lives, we give to help people in need and to support one another. The 50-50 Share the Plate can be donated to online, or you can text to give at 84321. And whether you can designate whether it's for pledge or for 50-50 Share the Plate. Checks can be mailed to UUC at 421 South Farwell Street in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 54701. And now we're going to move to David Jones. He's going to share some original music this morning and introduce that song in the spirit of our democracy. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. I am presenting a tune, and I appreciate the invitation to present this song. It was written in the early 1990s when I lived in Minneapolis, and I lived with my bandmates very close to 38th in Chicago, that unfortunately was the site of the death of George Floyd. We lived on 38th in Columbus at that time. And the name of the song is Rival, and the theme of the song is really the tensions that at the time for me were personal to growing up in Black communities and slowly but surely realizing how much tension there was between members of that community, including people that I knew. And there was a lot of violent action between whether that was organized violence that was related to organized crime, or whether that was interpersonal or partner violence. And just trying to come to terms with the level of that was very difficult, having grown up with the influence of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, where there was a sense of brotherhood, common bonds of all kinds between people. And so it was a very difficult journey to come to terms with that level of tension. So the song is really focused on that. And I think really the takeaways for now, for me and perhaps for others, are I know that there was a lot of destruction in that community of South Minneapolis during the unrest that followed the death of George Floyd. And I'm still sitting with that because it definitely feels personal. I mean, that's a place that is that I revere greatly and a very unique community. And I think that the story of that is still needing to be told. So I think some of the song points toward the need for more processing of this really event with global repercussions. And then the other thing I think about looking back at this song is that in the process of healing and connection between communities that have a different vision, different beliefs, different values, the level of tension that we have is inevitable and a source of growth, but also a source of pain. And so I think that's something that we have to be willing to confront in these times, that for many of us, it will take some time to look at the context that we live in and move forward. The things that create tension for us, the divisions, it takes a little while to sit with those to move forward for many of us. But that's okay. That's a part of the process that we have to confront. So I appreciate, thanks for just inviting me to share. And it's a joy to share this song, Rival.
Used to be my brother, now he's working for the others. He's a rival. He's got my name, it's not the same, like a stranger. Past is all gone and I gotta move on. He's a rival. Losing my faith, stay out of my way, I'm in danger. I think I understand what makes this man turn to violence. Sometimes I wonder, when am I going under, then I'll join him. When the battle is done, in the heat of the sun, hear the silence. Heroes all dead, pin a cross on their heads and reward them. I got nothing to choose, I got nothing to lose. He's a rival. The colors I wear, the cut of my hair, they are different. He knows where I stand, no weapon in my hand. He's a rival. Try to explain I ain't playing this game, but no one listens. Really don't know where to run, where to go to escape it. Every side's been taken and the walls are shaken to the ceiling. A child keeps crying, he doesn't like lying on the carpet. They hit this door, they'll hurt a lot more than his feelings. There ain't no need in my brother's new creed, he's a rival. With a slogan on his tongue, a bullet in his gun, he's a master. No reason for tears, he doesn't feel fear, he's a rival. And there's nothing to eat if you die on the street, at least it's faster. I really don't know where to run, where to go to escape it. Every side's been taken, the walls are shaking to the ceiling. But child keeps crying, he doesn't like lying on the carpet. They hit this door, they hurt a lot more than his feelings. Used to be my brother, now he's working for the others, he's a rival. He's got my name, but it's not the same, like a stranger. The past is all gone and I gotta move on, he's a rival. Losing my face, stay out of my way, I'm in danger. I think I understand what makes this man turn to violence. Sometimes I wonder, when am I going under, then I'll join him. When the battle is done, in the heat of the sun, hear the silence. The heroes all dead, pin a cross on their heads and reward them.
Thank you. That was really powerful. Please join me at home in extinguishing your chalice if you have a candle lit. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Elizabeth Seeley Jones. For those of you watching from Facebook live stream, I'm so glad you've joined us today. If you'd like to get information about how to join services in Zoom, you can fill out the visitor link in the Facebook comments. Those attending in Zoom will take a brief moment to share joys and concerns you might not have shared during service, and then we'll move into breakout rooms. And our closing words for today come from Frederick E. Gillis. May the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Amen.